so the project, which I know is in the agenda, but it's focused on looking at how the focus on policy support and reform for the built environment is able to build together a project that's going to focus on achieving energy performance, energy efficiency, and emission savings overall for buildings in the city. And I think this is a really interesting way to be able to look at that first part of what the program is focused on, is the efficiency to enabling greater flexibility that can come alongside that. So in the first instance, perhaps I can just introduce Yeni. I don't know who's going to go first, but maybe I'll just introduce Yeni because she's first on the list. From a degree in economics and social science from Bogor Agricultural University, coming with an extensive knowledge and experience in qualitative and quantitative research, which I think is really critical for what this project is describing, around policy analysis and policy formulation implementation, has been involved in a number of projects over the last 10 years, working with the IFC, the International Finance Corporation, and also the Indonesia Green Building Program and the Environmental and Social Risk Management Project. So we've got a real wealth of experience coming from Yeni here. Really thanks to have you on board. And then we also have Craig Burton, who is the head of knowledge innovation at Global Buildings Performance Network. And really, as Craig was describing earlier, is kind of in charge of the activities that relate to information and capacity building, information collection and capacity building, and the way that's being used to really support change. So again, with Craig's background and interest in behavior change, having worked with the Low Carbon Living CRC Knowledge Hub, and also the Analysis and Policy Observatory in Australia. So again, a great wealth of experience with Craig joining as well. So just to say thank you to you both, and I would like to hand it over to a presentation, as we have quite a nice large crowd today. And just for those of you who have entered, presentations will begin and we'll have an opportunity for a discussion afterwards. So thanks very much.
Okay, just as Ian said, I will start this. I would like to say this is more as a discussion. So what we are going to do is to share our work in Indonesia. But before that, thank you, Ian, for having us here. And thank you for International Energy Agency for allowing us to have this opportunity to share how we do our work in GBPN and how we encourage the involvement of energy saving buildings toward the better building emission in Indonesia and also in India. Before we start, so this is how we are going to present our process. The first one, we are going to talk about GBPN and also Indonesia, where we have the key activity. And the second one is we are going to share to you also what is the approach and how we approach the activity that we do in GBPN. And also then I will hand it over to Craig to talk about more on the technical aspect. So Craig here is our one person to go when we discuss about technical aspect. So here in GBPN, we make sure things are aligned, not just at the local level, even though it's the key aspect, but how it integrate on the international condition. So how we can enroll to a better condition at the international level. So then we will talk about the Samarinda. So what are the achievement and the result of the project? Okay, next slide, please. So this is just to touch a bit about GBPN. So GBPN basically is an NGO where we have like a key focus on the sustainable building and also the practices which highly involve policy reform. So most of our work is involving policy reform and how this policy reform can support the implementation of sustainable building. And now GBPN is actively collaborate with Indonesia government and also India government. So both in this country, we are rolling out and promoting better adoption of sustainable building development. And this is how we see the strategy to support the carbon emission reduction in building sector. So that was the main focus. And today we will discuss more on the one of our activity in Indonesia, which is our involvement with Samarinda city, where GPPN supporting the government of Samarinda to roll out policy reform to support the sustainable building development. Next. So this is how we actually see the whole approach. So this is how we frame our work in Samarinda. So basically, we are trying to say that the carbonization framework is something that comprehensive action. It's a set of action that runs parallelly and partially at the same time across different sectors. So it's not going to happen if we just focusing on one sector. If we just focusing on the building sector without seeing other sector that relate and support the process. So so this is how we see clearly about who are the stakeholder that we need to involve, how we need to involve them, and at what stage that we need to involve them. So this is like the umbrella, the key umbrella of how we divine our work and how we approach the work that we've done in Samarinda. Next, this is how we see the rollout of our work in Samarinda and how it integrated into the national program in Indonesia. So actually, this process in Samarinda is supporting the Indonesian government target. So Indonesia is rolling out a process of adopting green building. It runs quite slow. It started in 2015, and it's only start because the external party coming. So again, this is where we see the needs of external party support into a policy reform that supports sustainable building. So yes, the support is important, and the government response to that support is also important. So this is the key highlight, the first key highlight. Our policy reform will not work if we don't get the right buy-in. And the right buy-in should coming not only at the local level, while their actual work is happening, but also the national level, because it provides the umbrella policy toward the implementation at the local level. So moving from that aspect, the next slide, please. So this is how we try to see our stakeholder and how we integrate it into our work. So we have three key priority, which is the mapping, the prioritization, and the implementation and monitoring. This key pillar is foundation for the process, and this not going to happen individually, but it's happen parallelly and it in cycle. So mapping will help us to prioritize, and the prioritization will help us to make a good implementation and monitoring. But then again, as we implement the program, we need to do the same thing to start the cycle. So it helps us to have like a full loop and also regenerating loop of our work. So we making sure that all the stages is well recorded and all the stages is well managed. So that helps us with the process. Next one. So this is actually how we evolve. So we have those key aspects of the policy reform. and this policy reform of we try to break down into a clear stages and clear subject of process. And the key things of all this process is the people. So whatever things that we do, we try to make sure that it align with the local condition, it's aligned with the local need, it's aligned with the local culture, and it's aligned with the local gaps. So that was one thing that that we try to highlight. And how we do that is that we have a good data and we have a good integration where we understand the administrative of the government process. When we knew the actual need of the capacity building process that we need to provide, and what are the learning process that we need to provide during the process. And then the most one of the most important thing is that how the government can fund this process. So this is one thing that usually missing from the local government, and the team helps to identify that, to identify the opportunity, other needs, other step moving forward with the process. And one of the things that we always consider, even at the beginning of the project implementation, is the scalability. So the scalability of each project, we try to like put that as a key consideration. So whatever things that we do, we try to identify how it can be rolled out, how it can be scalable to other city, and how we make it as implementable as possible, so other cities and other area with similar condition can replicate the process. Next slide, please. So this is a bit context with Samarinda. So this is why we choose Samarinda. And actually, this is not the selection of the city, but again, this is how we try to put the key stakeholder engagement forward. We try to identify the needs of the city of Samarinda. So with the rollout of NDCs in Indonesia, the national government requires every local government to provide and to support the achievement of the NDC's goal. And Samarinda have that obligation. And one of the problem that's coming up is that cities doesn't know what to do. Samarinda government doesn't know what they need to do to support that process, how to reduce carbon emission, what are the things that they need to do that. They don't know that. And one of the most important thing is that Samarinda is a city that representing the third tier city in Indonesia, and third tier city is a city with rapid growth, and those rapid growth involve potential of CO2 reduction, and that was one of the key things that then we decide why Samarinda can be a good case for us to support the emission reduction. And next, and what happened with the city is that when we start the engagement, we are aware that the lack of substantive baseline data and other key information that related to building growth, energy consumption, emission for local government is not available. So it's not just they don't understand, they don't have anything to move forward from that condition, and they are not aware that it was something that they important for them to enable them to set a clear target. And that was then we we agreed with the local government that one of the key things that we need to do is the baselining process. This is where the learning process first comes. So make them aware of their situation, make them aware of their needs, and make them aware of what is the strategy to enable us to do that. The next slide. So this is just this is a bit description on where Samarinda lays and how Samarinda represent other cities, most other cities in Indonesia. This is where we really think about the scalability and replicability of this project. So from the beginning of the project, we are aware that Samarinda third city has an characteristic which most of the cities in Indonesia has. So it's more than 200 other city has similar characteristic with Samarinda. So therefore we go with Samarinda, and those similarity on characteristic helps us to have the opportunity for replication in other city in Indonesia. Next one. And this is as we move along with the local government, we try to identify why Samarinda need that, because they are not aware what are the necessity for Samarinda, what are the benefits for Samarinda to have this policy reform. And what we have identified with them is that these are the key issues that the city has already faced within the last 10 years. So it is a rapid growth series, and with the rapid growth, the comes with the rapid construction. Hotel, malls, and hospital and residents actually have growth more than 25%, and then on the last 10 years. And then the increase of population. So they just noticed that the increase of population then directly related to the increase of demand and demand of water and energy. And we have calculated that within 5 years, if they don't do anything, then there's a possibility that there will be a scarcity of energy. So that at that point, they realized that this is important for us. So rather than we chase them, we make them realize what they need for them. So this is how we map the process. And the other thing is that Samarinda is a city that nearby the new capital for Indonesia, and that provide another issues that the urbanization will be higher, and the growing demand of public services and infrastructure will be higher as the IKN is progressing. And at the same time, the local government was also aware that this is also a potential for them. If they can provide a good planning at the beginning of the development, then they can be a good support for the IKN, for the new capital for Indonesia. So this is another way we also encourage them to have a good participation in this process. And then the other thing is that Samarinda has always been have increase of environmental issues, pollution due to the coal mining, and also floods and also landslides. So it's something that continuously happen even on the last and getting worse on the last 5 years. So that was the way we identify the key issues and the urgency for Samarinda to have the process and involve the process here. Next one. So based on this problem, then we identify what are the support that they need and what GPPN discuss with them and agreed on is that the GPPN will provide the technical support and the stakeholder engagement and involvement. This is one of the key, the stakeholder engagement and involvement, because this city doesn't not aware that to evolve with the process, it's not only the government that need to be involved. It's need other stakeholder involvement. So that was also the learning process that we define with them along the process. And one of the key aspect is that the capacity development. So trying to be aware of their needs and trying to be aware of what are the key support that the program need to provide. Next one. So this is how we translate the process with them. This is how we try to develop a policy based on a good data and reliable data. So we involve them during the mapping process, the data collection, the overall process of defining what are the key things, the key support for the sustainable building implementation. And we try to do that with their active involvement, and that is important because this policy needs to be rolled out. And to roll out, we need to get a good buy-in. And the way we build that a good buy-in is by involve them in every stage of the process. And it works because from the beginning, we try to provide and also to include their concern, their understanding, and also what their expectation on how it will roll out to the process. Next one. So this is our way to make sure that all the process is well run. The activity is on track, and also it helps us to get the deliverable. And this process is something that we share with them and make them aware of where is the status right now and how they can support. So that's that there is how we always maintain a relationship with them, make them aware of their position, and make them aware of the support that they need to provide to make this process roll out. Next one. Okay, so this is when we talk about a new policy, and not just a new policy, this is also a new thing. Green building is something that's not common in Samarinda. Even the government is not aware of what is green building. And since this is a new idea coming into them, the key aspect that we will try to introduce to them and put in their mind is that it should be something that's simple so people can easily understand. It has high impact. So whatever things that we choose to be implemented in this regulation, it's something that implementable. So that shaping the confidence, their confidence that they can do it, even though without us. So they can do it because they knew it implementable. They can do it because they knew they can support the process. And to make sure that it's rolled out, we try to make the technical requirement for sustainable building is mandatory. So and it actually helped to ignite the process, because they without support from the regulation, the adoption will never start in Samarinda. So this is the kickoff where we as we implement the regulation, the adoption process is started. And to make that happen, we included the technical recommendation for sustainable building into the existing building regulation. Before, they don't have anything that related to sustainable building. All their building permits requirements only guide them to comply with safety regulation, but not sustainability of a building. Next, please. So I think that's all for me. that's more on the process, and I will hand it to you, Craig, to talk about the technical aspect and how we define the technical aspect with the local regulation. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Yeni. Hi, everybody. Craig here. I'm just going to run quite a sort of quick example here of what Yeni's talked about. So I'm going to be talking about how evidence-based policy making happens. As Yeni has introduced, we have a process where we approach Samarinda looking for data because we want to provide facts as the basis of policy. Facts are not quite so political. And I'm going to explain to you how we hunted around for data. We found gaps at the national and regional level and decided to run our own data collection. We then perform modeling as a basis of making predictions of what could be improved. And then we wrote guidelines that the government accepted. Now, this is quite a big, busy slide, and I'm not going to read the whole thing out, but what it really shows is that there are a number of ministries and government organizations that collect data. The National Bureau of Statistics, if you look at the bottom there, provides some information about the housing stock, but no information connected with that to do with energy use. Whereas if you look at the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources, which is responsible for energy, they do have a repository of information to do with demand. And I'll just defer here quickly to Ian Hamilton's own research, which is really about the importance of establishing standards for the collection of data just like this so that we can share it more easily. I'll move to my next slide where we show the state-owned electricity company. And of course, the state-owned company, PLN, has quite a lot more information on energy demand per housing group or per connection size. So we don't have smart meters to tap on in Samarinda. We had to do our best with this kind of aggregate data for the house typology size. And so in the true spirit of agile product development, in trying to form guidelines, we need a very good understanding of the customer. And Yeni has already spoken to you about how we engage governments and how we have them on board for the whole process. But you can see here that under the regional governance, we have Samarinda's agencies to deal with and to understand. When we understand their needs, we can make something for them that's going to work. However, we also use coalitions. So we have a coalition methodology where we bring together local experts, local academics, and local people of influence, and they contribute to this this design of how policies can change successfully and are likely to be accepted. Whenever you do a data collection or whenever you set out to do science based on the collection and analysis of data, you have to admit to some assumptions. And so I'm quickly going to admit to some assumptions that we made. There were many more, but some important ones are that there most certainly are ways to improve building performance in Samarinda. We made that assumption. We felt that data could support guidelines. So we felt that it could be data driven. We are attacking the problem from 3 different directions. That is guidelines for electromechanical devices, guidelines for building shell, and guidelines for occupant behavior. These were the 3 ways in. And so we felt that getting data on these 3 things would be adequate for us to formulate the guidelines. So this design of the intervention was to try and collect this data. As I said before, we didn't have smart meter data, so we had to assign a proxy. And so the proxy for energy demand in the building is its connection size. So this is not quite the same thing, but that's what we needed to use in this location because we didn't have digital data. First of all, you can see here that the PLN data showed us that the winning user of energy in Samarinda was homes. Not only is it the majority energy user, it also is growing the fastest at about 9% a year. As Yeni said, this is a growing city, and the major user is where we're going to do our data collection. Here's a few more graphs talking about the different connection sizes. So if you look at the top of this page, you can see up here that These are the electrical connection sizes that are available for residences in Samarinda. And at the bottom of the page, you can see the way, the size of these homes, or the number of connections that there are. And I've drawn a pink box here showing where we focused our attention. There are smaller connection sizes, but everybody is scaling up. So it's a place where wealth is increasing. So house sizes are increasing, energy demand is increasing, and so connection sizes are increasing. So we stuck with this group. We ignored the topmost group, which is spills over into commercial. And just let me go ahead. We had a survey. So not only did we collect connection sizes and energy demand per connection size from the utility, we also had a survey for our occupants, and this is done with the source of UNTAG, which is a university partner of ours. And one thing you can notice here, that the dwellings are actually all very similar in the manner and materials in which they are built, except of course for the size of the buildings, which correlates strongly with the connection size. We also wrote down how many air conditioners they have, how big they are, how often they use them, and most critically, what the set point was for those air conditioners. And you can see here it was always around 22 degrees Celsius. They were kept blasting at this temperature, and this contributed to some of our later policy design. Over here, this really tells you where the energy is going. So here are the increasing house sizes grouped by their connection size. It's obvious what they're spending all their energy on. It's on cooling. And that's where we wanted to make the savings. So using these kind of 3 lines of approach, the envelope, the electromechanical and plumbing systems and behaviors, we then made an assessment of what was going to work. So what's actually going to bring us a reduction in energy demand? So this is passive demand side management. What can we do to the building that is going to really reduce our demand and thus the CO2 footprint? It's got to be affordable. No fusion reactors allowed, right? Whatever we suggest, it has to be inexpensive. And it needs to have a reasonable payback period, and it needs to be the kind of thing the government can back with incentives. And ultimately, is the local market ready to deliver this? Are there local skills available to install these things? And are the solutions, you know, practical and simple and able to be deployed? The intersection of this is where we designed our guidelines. Alrighty. So impact on building performance, the winners are a new installation technique for walls that we looked at, as well as obviously more efficient air conditioners. You may have noticed before that the average performance of the air conditioners was a COP of 2.3. If you increase that to a COP of 4.2, that is a huge improvement. There's some improvement in replacing CFLs with LEDs. And then there's quite a lot of promise in a thing we call hybrid fans. So a hybrid fan is a fan in the center of the room that comes on every time you turn on the air conditioner. And by circulating the cool air, it improves the coefficient of performance of the air conditioner. So we also looked at the financial feasibility. When we put the colored boxes on here, unfortunately, more heat resistant walls are much more expensive. They have a huge upfront cost and a long payback period. Finally, what can we actually build? Can we build it? Looking at the typology of residences in Samarinda, there are already performance changes being implemented, and there are renovations taking place already. Many different things are being improved, so there is great capability to do the kind of work that we want to introduce. They already have standards and public education about air conditioners, and as I said before, the upgrading to efficient lighting. So if you lay all this out in a really tidy little table, you can see what's going to provide the best energy reduction, which strongly identifies reduced carbon emissions, what takes a long time to pay back, and what costs the most. And I've put little green boxes there, which were the envelope, machinery, and performance changes we were going for. And these formed the basis of our recommendations, keeping in mind that we felt it was very important to pick winners. So this government was the earliest government that we engaged with. We wanted to choose things that were going to work, with the assumption that we might be able to make more recommendations in the future to increase the ambition of these interventions for buildings. All right. And if the government adopted these recommendations, this is what the modelling shows us. The light blue boxes are the improved energy demand. Obviously, when you have more demand and more opportunity for savings, you have greater reduction. 2 million Indian rupees is about $140 US, and 6 million is about $400 US. And this is a substantial saving for these households that are lower income. Accordingly, because there's such great savings at the larger end, so up on the right here, the payback period is shorter. So the savings are greater, the time to pay back is shorter, which really means that the bigger places are more attractive for these regulations. But that's okay, because everybody is migrating to larger houses. So we're going with the tide. But here is a surprise ending to this presentation. The surprise is that in the same way that only 5% of buildings are built by architects, in Samarinda, only about 1 in 5 building projects request a permit, and then only about 1 in 10 building projects receives a permit. The problem with this is that if we assert new regulations through the building code, we can't enforce them over properties that don't have permits. So the problem with that is that not enough houses are going to improve their performance. And if you look at this graph, there's a light blue and dark blue line. The difference before and after the regulations is very small if we only change the building code. So what are we going to do? The answer is to basically bring about several changes at once. So first of all, we have to go broader than the building codes. We need to involve the government in understanding that changes must also be made to bring people to register building permits. And the problem with building permits, and especially new building permits, is it just looks like more regulations. So there needs to be reform, administrative reform. And the other way that we are helping this government is with general outreach and general education on how to benefit from higher performance buildings. We've written some standard operating procedures. And again, these are aimed at administrative reform. So speeding up the permit process, making the permit process more lightweight, hopefully making it cheaper. And then finally targeting the use of materials. And so if these broader policy package changes are also adopted, you can see that bottom curve there starts to really come down. So the more we can change the whole ecosystem around building regulations, the deeper the improvements. And I'm going to hand back to Yeni now, because it's very important when we go step by step that we acknowledge the successes that we make at each step. So what's this, Yeni? Tell us.
So from all the process that Craig has already mentioned, this is the result. So this is one of the good things that come up from the process. So we, it's not our work, but actually the government of Samarinda works. They already enacted a regulation that support the sustainable building and energy efficiency in 2021. And based on this regulation, then they will implement sustainable building requirement into their building permits. And this is also, again, our opportunity to provide support for the local government. After this process, we try to identify what are the further needs that needs that the government of Samarinda toward the implementation. And from the discussion, we are aware that the implementation is not as easy as we thought. So even though all the aspect, it's simple, it's measurable, it's implementable, but again, even the implementation still has challenges, and based on these challenges, we are agreed to provide further support based on their request. And the further support is that the GPPN will help them to develop a technical guideline. So this regulation on the policy language is translated into a technical language, where all the key stakeholders can follow and see the same standardized value and criteria toward the compliance. So that's how we follow up with the process. And now we are on the technical recommendation development. Again, this is the process where we also handing over the learning process from our student and make them identify what are the things that they need to learn from us. So that was the process, and it's still ongoing process. The technical recommendation it's moving forward, and we are aiming to have the technical guideline within the end of this year. So again, after this success, I'm handing it over again to Craig.
All right. I noticed, Ian, that we're a bit out of time. I had 2 slides here talking about a current project that we're doing for rooftop solar.
Sure.
I'm from Australia and I'm crazy about solar, and we think that Indonesia may have an even larger solar boom than Australia. But I guess I'll just have to leave this to the audience to approach us separately. This was done with TU Delft to work out the potential for solar in Bali. And project that for all of Indonesia. And the numbers are enormous, but we don't quite have time. So I'm just going to sum up by saying that the solution is to go broader than the building codes. Now we've done standard operating procedures, and we'll do guidelines, and we'll provide more government support for the entire ecosystem around performing buildings. Administrative perform around permits is, I hope, the main takeaway. You might remember from this presentation that you can't just reform one thing. We have to make the whole value chain work. And I didn't quite get to talk about solar or grid impact, but this is what's coming. This is what's coming next.